Before I begin, I want to make a big announcement. The full Igbo calendar is now available for your Apple and Google Calendar. I have created a calendar that tells the 13 moons, 4 market days, and different holidays and correlating rituals across the whole of Igbo land, as well as breakdowns of what they mean and the stories behind them. This is available for all patrons who join our community. To support this channel at patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. All patrons have access to an in-house Debia for readings and spirit work. My full e-library, which has hundreds of books, articles, journals, and studies that I use for my research. An exclusive post that you won't see on YouTube or social media. So with that being said, let's begin.
Okay, perfect. So if there's no more questions, we're going to now get ready to segue into the panel African Ways of Knowing. Dr. Salam, our co-founder, was originally supposed to sit on this panel as well, but she's currently under the weather, as I said, and so she's not able to join us. But she sends her regards, and she's very excited for this conference. So I want to give a brief kind of opener, 2, maybe 3 sentences on African ways of knowing, and then I'm going to hand it over to Derek. So African ways of knowing is extremely, extremely, extremely important, specifically in the work that we're trying to do here at ERO, African Science Foundation. African ways of knowing is one of the key objectives when it comes to resurrecting an African science, because it allows us to go and revisit the methodologies kind of that we take to know something, to understand something, to analyze, to look. When we look at something, when we see some new phenomena or we see something old, it involves the processes that we go through to understand that thing, right? And so African ways of knowing really is what's going to allow us to really combine a cohesive, a very coherent Pan-African scientific process or methodology, right? And so I'm very, very excited to have this topic here at this conference. Our good brother, Derek Ofodenwa of TheMedicineShell, he is an absolute scholar on all things Igbo, anything. Just there's no one word to really cover it all, but anything related to Igbo cosmology, culture, spirituality, ways of knowing anything, Derek Ofodenwa is your man. So please follow his content on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube at TheMedicineShell, and I'm sure he's going to speak more about that. But I'm more than happy and excited to welcome to the stage Derek Ofodenwa. Yes.
Yes, thank you. All right. So as our brother Mr. Salam introduced me, my name is Derek Ofodenwa. The meaning of my last name Ofodenwa means the Ofo is within the child. Right? The Ofo is within. And that ties into what I'm going to be discussing today as far as our topic, African ways of knowing. So for those who don't know, I run a YouTube channel. I'm a teacher. I cover Igbo cosmology and spirituality. But that kind of allows me to cheat a little bit because as you understand with our people, there's no difference between spirituality and life. They are tied together. So I get to talk about any and everything within that cultural space. If you're interested, check out TheMedicineShell, all one word, on YouTube. I'm also on Twitter at Shell Medicine. And Instagram too, but I barely check that one, so do the other two. So yeah, before we begin, I want to begin by doing the honors. And what I'm going to do, what I'm presenting is Oji, right? So Oji in Igbo culture is a set of fruits that our ancestors chose to represent the link between all things. The story goes that when Chukwu and the first people, Nimbu, were more closely connected, we were able to enter Obi Chukwu, which is the home of Chukwu. But if you understand the language, the Igbo language well, Obi is also the heart or the source. So we were able to easily enter Obi Chukwu. And when we entered Obi Chukwu, we were allowed to choose from Chukwu's garden what we want to eat. And our ancestors chose, among many things, the Oji. Now, traditionally, Baba Brother D, I want to thank you for what you presented. You're the only elder whose face I can see. So I'm going to hand this to you, and I'm going to ask you if you can give me permission to do the ceremony, because typically it's supposed to be the eldest man in the room. Now, I don't know. I can't check everybody's age, but, you know, Baba, I'm looking. I know you're older than me, so I'm going to hand this to you. And if you can just nod your head and let me go, then. All right, thank you. So, so let me begin. I will, of course, speak my language, but I'll let you guys know what I said in the end. Ala wala, ala mutarai, ekeleremgi, ukike keruwa, ukike nenyendu, ekeleremgi, ekelerem diche, ndiche umu Africa, ndimbu na ndi egede, ekelerem unu, ekelerem di eke, ekele ndi orie, ekele ndi afọ, ekele ndi nkwọ, kelerem ndị mmadụ na ndị mmụọ niile nọ nke aka anyị. Ọjị abịala, mụ na ndị iche si na onye wetara ọjị nwetara ndụ. Unu ga-adị, unu ga-eri, unu ga-amụ, unu ga-echi, unu ga-atọ, na aha ndị iche kere anyị niile ise. So what I just said, just quick rundown, I gave a greeting to the earth, ala wala, earth who is the earth. The earth who gave birth to us. I gave a greeting to the creator that created the world. I gave a greeting to the ancestors of all African people. Ndimbu Nandiegede is what we call them. I greet them. I greeted the Eke people, those born on the Eke day. In our calendar, we have 4 days, Eke, Orie, Afon, and Kwa. And each of those days determine your universal path or how you enter the world through reincarnation. So whichever day you were born is also one of your names. So I greeted those born on Eke, Orie, Afon, and Kwa. I greeted the living and the non-living who are with us today. I presented the Oji, and I gave a proverb that we use in our culture, which says, whoever brings the Oji brings life. You understand? Whoever brings the Oji brings life. If you understand more about that's probably a topic for another thing, but if you understand the meaning of that, it all connects. So I just said that you will all prosper, you will all eat well, you will all give birth, you will all reign, and you will all have the things manifest that you wish to manifest. And then from there, we sent it off with Ise. I know a lot of you guys are familiar with Ifa. So in Ifa, it would be the same as Ase or Ashe. So what I'm presenting on today is on the concept of African ways of knowing. African ways of knowing. And again, I give thanks to Babadi for speaking on a lot of the things that I'm going to touch on. So hopefully I can add a perspective to it or build on what he had already established. So as far as African ways of knowing go, I want us to all understand one thing, right? The African ways of knowing and ways of knowing throughout the world are the same. There's something that makes it different, which is fundamental, and I'll cover that towards the end of my presentation. There's a key difference between the way of knowing in Africa, the way of knowing of our ancestors, and the way of knowing we are encountering today or we are living in today. There is a difference, but fundamentally, they are the same. It is the same flame. Now, whether a flame is used to light a room or set the room on fire, it's the same flame, right? So fundamentally, I want to say that. Now, as far as our ancestors go, there are two proverbs that also sum up much of what I'm going to say today. The first is, a child cannot see standing up what an elder can see sitting down. A child cannot see standing up what an elder can see sitting down. The second is, a child who travels is wiser than an elder who stays home. All right. As I present, there are some themes I'm going to cover. The first one is the knowledge you seek. All knowing, all understanding, all wisdom is within you. It exists within you. Everything you believe you are to come to know, or everything you seek to learn, you already know it. And what you're witnessing is a system of reminders, right? Also going to explore the idea of the chi and the idea of resonance as a memory. And then from there, we'll go into the methods by which our wise men, in some cultures, they're called Babalawo, Dibia, whatever name you give them, and wise women, right? And is and why we call them in my culture. What they use to retrieve knowledge from within themselves and from within the various vessels of the world, right? In Igbo cosmology, we believe fundamentally in the concept of the chi. The chi is the article of God within you, the article of divinity. I don't like using the word God, but the article of divinity within you, right? It is the spark that brings you into the world. On an abstract level, we understand the chi to be similar to like an idea, right? Many of the words that allude to beginning or starting or initiating in the Igbo language will start with the CH, E or I, right? But chi is CHI, right? And the chi is the spark that brings you into the world. So if we're talking about a book, the idea to write that book, that is the chi of that book. You understand? At the same time, the chi is also alluded to in a very similar to the sun, right? It is said that the sun is the most exact manifestation of the chi that we're aware of. You understand? In that everything orbits the sun. And it's very interesting that our ancestors were saying this when they allegedly did not know this. Everything orbits around the sun. When day breaks, you understand that we say chi has come. When you're saying goodbye to people, we say, okay, when chi returns. We're speaking of the sun. Exactly. So in that, we understand that the chi, the spark or the idea, the thing that brings you into the world, whatever you classify it as, right? Whatever you classify it as, has a gravity by which it controls what will happen to you, your orbit, who you will be. What, even if you, one of the ways to put it is the people who try to fight their chi, you understand, if you try to fight your chi, you are not, a person who's facing their chi is facing the day. A person who's fighting their chi is facing the night. But fundamentally, you're still orbiting around that same thing. You understand? So understanding your chi is the way an individual understands their orbits. Now, how does an individual understand their chi? There's a list of methods on how it is done, but it is in understanding the self and in understanding the concept of resonance, right? In Igbo cosmology, the idea of resonance is a form of memory or a form of wisdom, meaning that as the sun gives you heat, as the sun gives you warmth and light, when you feel heat or warmth or light coming from you, whether you're facing a certain subject or you're doing a certain thing, that is your chi speaking. And if you understand the fact that the chi is immortal and it is a part of you that comes back into the world again and again and again, you'll understand what it means as the chi as a memory, right? What we mean by the chi being a memory. So now when I began, I said that the modern way of knowing and the ancestral way of knowing are fundamentally the same or similar, right? But there is something that divides them, right? I want to explore the idea of the modern way of knowing before I return to the idea of the chi and so forth. So currently as it stands, we're in a world where knowing is believed to come from the outside. Knowing is believed to come from the outside. When you seek to learn, you seek a teacher, you may go to a school, you may sign up for a program and so forth. And because that knowledge comes from the outside, when you go to seek that knowledge from that thing, right? When you go to seek that knowledge from that thing that gives you the knowledge will then give you perimeters by which you will acquire that knowledge in our current cultural paradigm. You understand? One way to look at it is the way that the Christian church is structured in the West, or most religion is structured in the West. You understand? When I say chi in Igbo cosmology, and when somebody else says God and so forth, we're almost talking about the same thing. Now, the fundamental difference is this. In the Western understanding, in order for me to get close to chi, I have to go to the person that knows chi, which is the pastor, the preacher, the individual who holds that knowledge, because understanding of this thing called chi has to come from the outside. I have to read my Bible, maybe join groups and so forth, so that that outside element puts knowledge in me, an incomplete or empty vessel, right? In the ancestral understanding, if the knowledge comes from within, you're not doing that. Oftentimes I hear people translate Dibia or Babalawo as a pastor or a preacher, or not pastor, more so priest, right? And so forth. And if it's for convenience, if the person doesn't know any other way to say it, then fine, so be it. But fundamentally, that's very inaccurate. You do not go to a Dibia for your spiritual growth. You go to a Dibia for healing. You go to a Dibia for what the Dibia does. And again, that ties into what I'm going to say toward the end, right? You go to the Dibia, but spiritual growth is done by the individual and with the family. One thing you will see that unites all African systems is the concept of ancestors. The concept of ancestors being central to the spiritual understanding, in that I cannot leave my house and go to another man's edifice, temple, or building and start to learn about my ancestors or start to learn about myself, right? I would have to come back home and understand. Throughout African folklore, you will understand that the turtle is always hailed as the most intelligent creature. There's a lot of folklore where turtles are tricking people or having a higher sense of knowledge about it than other people and so forth. In the American diasporic tradition, that's where you get the turtle and the hare story. That is originally from Africa, you understand. And the turtle knew something that the hare didn't know, you understand. You also get, it gets flipped also as, or not flipped, but it gets interpreted as the Burr Rabbit story. So the Burr Rabbit tradition of stories is the exact same thing. Now, why was the turtle chosen? Because of all the creatures in the world, the turtle is the one that goes within itself. The turtle is the one that goes within itself. The turtle does not seek things with an aggression on the outside. It can go into itself very quickly, but when it pursues the outside, it approaches slowly and with caution. And from this, it's exemplary of wisdom. The turtle is an example of wisdom. So when you hear these stories of these turtles, when you see rituals that involve turtle shells, the fact that the highest form of divination is the divination done when the nodes or the strings for divination are pulled out of a turtle shell. That is the highest form. You then understand that the ritual is actually a form of communication, a form of codification of knowledge, right? So in the modern idea of knowing, knowledge exists on the outside. I must always go to the outside to seek knowledge. Now, returning to this idea of the chi, an individual's chi is what that individual will orbit around. It'll be the sun of your sky. And there's no more powerful, more persuasive method of control than to tell another person you know their chi, or from you they can get closer to their chi, or you stand in the road of their chi and they have to go through you. And if you look at all systems that deal with colonialism and the process of control, fundamentally, that's what it is. Fundamentally, that's what it is, right? So as far as the modern method or the Western method, let me not say modern, the Western method of knowing, right? One thing that sticks out is the idea of the scientific method, right? What we call science today is the byproduct of what is called the scientific method, in that a process for verifying information. Science is not in the process of learning or discovering things. Science verifies things, meaning that there's a law in this world that is known, but it has not been ran through this specific machine called the scientific method. And in order for it to be valid in our culture, in this Western cultural paradigm, not say our culture, in this Western cultural paradigm, it has to run through that machine. And every time it runs through that machine, it's verified whether it's true or false. Now, this doesn't mean the machine itself is inherently deceptive. It doesn't mean the machine itself is inherently deceptive, right? But the fact that I hold this machine, right, makes me the chi of all understanding. And as the chi of all understanding, it's from me you gain glory. So you can discover something on your own as an individual person. You can know something on your own, either intuitively or through your own research. But if you have not ran it through me, you cannot get to your chi. You cannot feel that resonance. You cannot have the glory. You cannot be validated until you run it through my specific machine. And the ultimate payoff, as funny or as minor as it may sound, the ultimate payoff of this machine is it makes you feel good, right? And if feeling good was a small thing, 99% of the US economy would disappear, because that's all that's being sold at this point after eating, even within the eating. It makes you feel good. You are feeling the sun. I have convinced you that I hold your chi. And in order for you to feel that thing, you must come to me. You understand? Now, after something is ran through the scientific method, there is the process of codification. Now, codification, or codifying knowledge in the modern sense, will give you a very clear idea of what some of these setbacks, flaws, or even intentions. I don't even want to call them flaws, because the person that put them together for a reason, right? A lot of us will look at a concept like physics, and we will think that this belongs to a group of people known as intelligent people, right? In the West, we have this concept of intelligence. An intelligent person is the person that's going to understand physics. An intelligent person is the one that's going to understand biology and all these different topics. Or if somebody writes an exceptional work of art, so, oh wow, that person's talented. There's something about that person that made that thing happen, right? He's part of that exalted class of people. You understand? And what that does to the average individual is it convinces them something that's fundamentally un-African, is that there is an inequality in access to knowing, or there is an inequality in access of understanding. And by accepting that idea of the inequality, you go from saying, well, gravity is not that complicated of a thing, I fall all the time, to saying, you know what, I don't know if I can understand physics, it seems too complicated. Now, how is some of this codification done? I'm speaking English, right? We're all going to be probably speaking a lot of English in this presentation, but a lot of scientific information is put in Latin. It's put in Greek, and not even the Greek that is being spoken today, just Old Greek, you understand? So that in order to understand this thing, you still must go through me. If you understand Latin, you will know, or if you know the history of Latin, you know it's a byproduct of the Roman Empire. If you know what the Roman Empire is and its byproducts, you know that I must go through the West to understand this thing. In order to discuss what is in a computer, I must learn English and go through that thing, because that's who holds my chi. That's who holds that resonance, that understanding, the validation. Yes, you do know this, my child. That's the person that holds that, right? And, a lot of the time, a lot of these concepts too, and, people will say, how do I do my research and so forth? I have a library that I, make all my information available and things like that. But the number one source of what I know is in the language itself, because these things were not hidden in the language. My ancestors learned things so that I could know them. And so they made it very clear, in that if you can speak Igbo, you will know what the Igbos know. If you can speak Yoruba, you'll know what the Yorubas know. If you can speak Akan, you'll know what the Akans know, because that's what the language is designed to do. If you can speak English, you still might not know. You're still going to need to go to a course to understand just the basicest things of life, right? You take a word like macrophage, the process of macrophage, right? Macrophage, what is that? If I don't know Latin, I don't know what that is. It's a Latin phrase meaning big eating, or eating something big. That's all it is. Now, instead of saying eating something big, you will say macrophage to me. Why? So I can get through your gate. And there's money in that gate. There's power in that gate. There's access. If I hold your chi, and the chi is what you orbit around, you have no other recourse or ability to do otherwise than to orbit around what I say. And as you orbit, you're going to drop a few dollars, you're going to hail me a little bit, and then you're going to wait till I validate you so that you can feel like you're among the knowing, or the intelligence, or the understanding, right? If you look at, and if you want to see this displayed in real time, look at the control panel of an airplane. The control panel of an airplane. A pilot only touches 3 or 4 of those knobs and buttons, but there are hundreds of them there. Why? So that if I come running from the back and I want to hijack the airplane, and I look at this thing, I'll be intimidated and I'll step back. making the pilot the ultimate master because he knows which of those three buttons to push. You understand? So fundamentally, knowing does not differ by culture. Knowing does not differ by culture. It is intention that then differs, right? There's a difference between something your parents hand you, your ancestors hand you, and something a stranger hands you, right? There's a difference, fundamental. There's a difference between what I will give my son than what I'll give a stranger. If I pass away, my son can have everything I have, and I hope I have enough for him to be happy. You understand? That's my intention as your natural intention as a father. It's not universal, but it's a natural intention. You understand? For a stranger, not so much. You'd be lucky to find a stranger that has that much commitment to you. And from this, you understand why the chi is sought through ancestral veneration. Why all African cosmologies exist in a family context. Why in my community, Umokwe, in a town called Awomama, has a different pantheon, or let's call a pantheon, of Abara spirits we interface with than the neighboring community. Because fundamentally, it is a legacy linked to family. And it is believed or understood that all of these things come from within. Come from within. And the ability to access what is within will come from those who accessed it before, or understanding of how to do it will come from those who accessed it before. And there's no other person you can trust more than your exact line, your ancestors, those who brought you into the world. So we get into this modern or Western idea of understanding. And here we are, the idea that intelligence is rare, the idea that intelligence comes from the outside, and the idea that in order for you to feel good about anything you know, you must cross-check it with these methodologies, right? And just that little idea of feeling good has taken over the entire world for the past 500 years. When you put it in context, it seems small. But then if you step outside of that context itself and see it from the outside, you'll now see how much of an individual's life is controlled by that very small concept. So ancestrally, how did it differ, right? Well, going back to the idea of the chi. The chi is a spark of divinity, meaning that all things that are created are from the creator and of the creator. Within the chi itself, the chi gives us a part of ourselves known as our agun. Agun is what we would call the inner mind. It is the hind mind, or it is also, or is said, it is the mind that we share with God, or with chi, chuku, whatever language you call it in your language. Meaning that we have our own mind, but then the mind that created the universe is within us. So understanding this, you will now understand why the idea of knowledge coming from within being fundamentally the difference or the differentiator in the African system of knowing and in the modern system of knowing, right? Now, what does this mean? As the creator, as the mind that brought things into fruition, you have a natural and exact understanding of the rhythm of nature. Right? In Igbo cosmology, we have an understanding that if you know something small, you know something big. If you know a little thing, you know all things. That in understanding, the proverb is an individual who doesn't know how to build an ogene can look at the kite of a bird, or the tail of a kite. Sorry about that. Yeah, the tail of a kite, right? The kite being like a bird that glides, like a falcon, right? And the ogene being a triangular instrument, right? Meaning that all that is to be known is very simple, and it manifests over and over and over throughout nature, right? If you know, like let's take music for example. Music only exists in repetition, and this is what I mean by the rhythm of nature. Music only exists in repetition. If it does not repeat itself, it is not music. Meaning that if you know a segment of a song, you very accurately know the rest of it, especially if it's just an instrumentation. You can very accurately know the rest of it, right? Nature is constructed in the same repetitive nature, so that a child, a small child, comes into the world with a very clear understanding of this natural rhythm. There are a lot of things within humanity or the human mind or body or essence and existence that we do on a regular basis that would tell you that you know more than you think you know. And there's a strong vested interest in making sure you think you don't know anything. Because within you are your as a manifestation of chi, you are extremely powerful and you are extremely valuable. And that is the best customer on earth. That is the best slave on earth. That is the best subject on earth, best employee on earth, right? Imagine employing God. You can do all types of things. You can do all types of things, right? So within the individual, right, is the agon. Agon is the abara, or the spirit that shares the mind of Chukwu. It is the mind of Chukwu itself, is the inner universal mind that all of us share from, the well of understanding and vision that all creatures come to sustain themselves and drink, right? So culturally, with the Agon being represented with the turtle or the snail, anything that goes within itself, you now see the process of learning known as igor-more, right? Now, before I explain igor-more, you have to understand that all things have an Agon. It's not just human beings, and it's not just living things. Absolutely every single thing has an Agon. And every single thing has what is called more, right? We often translate it as spirit, but I think the most accurate way to say it is your aura, is your aura. And everywhere you go, everything you do, you leave a part of your aura there. And that is your more. The aura of another person in a room with you will sync with your own, in that if you enter a room and you're very happy and everybody else is depressed, you'll suddenly become a little more depressed and they'll suddenly become a little more happy. It's a syncing process. The example I use often is with a coffee cup. If you place a coffee cup on a table and lift it, the cup, that spot is a little bit warmer. That warmth is the more, or represents what the more does, your auric essence does in the relationship with you and other people in the world. So the process of igor-more is the process of you as a human being interfacing with the more of something else and communicating with that thing on that level. I think I'm going to lose a lot of people at this point because it seems out there, but as hopefully I can bring it to where everybody understands, or anyways, I'm with a lot of scholars, so maybe you guys already know. But the idea that an individual, or when an individual becomes a dibia, right? They are, one of the processes, you're sent into the forest and you are told not to return until the plants speak to you. Do not return until the plants speak to you. So that you enter the forest and you're able to, once you have mastered this process of igor-more, you're able to touch a plant and know exactly what it does. You're able to look at a mineral and know exactly what it treats, right? Now, prior to the past 3 years, if you would have told me this was a thing, I wouldn't have believed it, right? Until I started doing it myself. The igor-more is known as a trance in the English language, right? Which is different from meditation, igor-chi, which I'll also explain. Igor-more, or entering a trance state, is the release of the self, and the interface with another thing. So that when you drink, is an example, right? You drink, every time you drink, you release a little bit of yourself and you merge with the more of the alcohol, the spirit, we call it in English, right? So gradually you begin to behave like that thing. Now, if you know what fermentation is death, right? And as you drink, you're interfacing with that feeling of death and fermentation, and that's how it manifests. When you look at a lot of masquerades in West and Central Africa, where I'm sure most of us have our ancestry, in West and Central Africa, the person inside of that masquerade is not the person you know. In order to become that masquerade, you must enter isolation in the igor-more process. You must either not eat or eat at a limited level. right? Eat very sparingly, right? And then from there, you do not exit the room until the spirit of that masquerade enters you and is able to walk the world through you, is able to walk the world through you, in that you have denied yourself so much that you have released yourself and allowed something else to enter you temporarily. And once it is entered, you begin to speak with its voice. You begin to use its language. You begin to say what it said when it was living. And you walk around the community and you teach and you heal and you create opportunities for seeing what was known in the past before returning from your path, right? Now, that's a complicated way of looking at igor-more. Igor-more can be also done through psychedelics. Most of us in the West understand that. Psychedelics is another way it is done. You know, marijuana, herbs, different things, taking these things in and then learning from the plant itself are also methods of doing igor, right? But in saying that, when I began to do it, my own process is not very complicated. It's not very mystic, right? My son, when all this corona stuff first broke out, something happened with my son. His gums started swelling up, right? And I knew instinctively to mix basil and turmeric and rub it in his mouth, it'll go down. I did it within a few hours that night. The swelling was gone. I didn't know what it was, but I just knew that instinctively. Why? Because I had studied our ancestors enough to know that concept of the rhythm of nature, the concept of the rhythm of nature, meaning that most plants manifest as what they, or as images or repetition of what they affect inside of your body, right? So if you're looking at this here, this is known as the oseogy. Let me get my camera back, see if you guys can see this well. This is the oseogy. This is half of one. I eat these every day, so it's I'm about halfway through, right? What you'll see is it has 4 lobes and a bunch of little seeds that look like this, right? But anybody who's moderately, you know, learned or not even learned, just period, you know that this kind of looks like a brain, right? Guinea pepper. Yeah, somebody said it. This looks like I already think it's guinea pepper anyways. I know what sausage. Yeah. It looks very much like a brain, right? Our ancestors knew that everything concerning thinking is healed by this brain-like plant. There's another one known as we call it sausage. It's a red 4-lobe cola nut, right? Remember, we entered Obi Chukwu, the heart of Chukwu, and he told us to choose what we want, and we picked that particular thing, and we left with it, and it's our symbol now for all of humanity, right? That thing looks very much like a human heart, right? In ingesting it, you now see its effects for blood pressure. You now see its effects for heart disease. You now see its effects for regulating the heart rate. You see that every single thing it treats, it resembles what it treats. In most West African cultures, we use palm oil very often. Palm oil is very red, it looks like blood, right? And anybody can do this if you want. Google what palm oil affects in the body. It's blood. So here I am figuring out all these things, I can barely pass a chemistry class. You know? Here I am figuring out all these things. Why did I know that basil would affect my child's mouth? Because the texture, I grow basil outside, the texture of basil and the texture of the gums are very similar, right? Kidney beans help the kidney. It's all right there, right? But prior to this, prior to seeing the universe not as a rhythm, seeing creation not as a thing that manifests itself again and again and again in several forms, and that you only need to look for the plant that looks like the eyes in order to heal the eyes, and in seeing these things as detached little pieces of information that are held by different people, you're suddenly detached from your inheritance in the world, which is universal wisdom, it's universal understanding, right? The African or the ancestral method of understanding is in getting back in rhythm with nature. When you are in rhythm with nature, everything starts to look very simple. I can do the first 4 beats of Billie Jean, and the rest of the song start playing in everybody's head, right? It's not because I know magic. It's not because of anything abnormal happening. It's because things that are structured in a rhythmic nature are repetitive. And from there, learning is not as complicated as people want to believe it is. Now, another method of knowing is igor-chi. Igor-chi, as igor-more is the release of the self, igor-chi is the absolute embrace of the self, so that you are learning based on who you are. Now, remember, I described the chi as being analogous to the sun, or very similar to the sun in its nature, right? In that, when I am close to the sun, I feel warmth. When I am close to my chi, I feel warmth. When I'm close to a fire, I feel warmth. All of these things are connected, right? All of these things are connected. And I say they are connected because the closer you are to your chi, the more of that feeling you will get. The more of that feeling you will get. There are individuals who can give you that feeling synthetically. They can give you a plant or a pill that gives you that chi feeling. And within a few weeks or a few months, suddenly you orbit around that substance and you are what we call addicted. Because instead of seeking your actual chi, which can be difficult or painful, because it comes with a lot of painful truths and a lot of self-realization and being honest with the self. If you don't want to look, if what is within scares you, it is easy to go seek it out there. And that is one of the most lucrative things going on in any Western economy that you can imagine, is selling people the feeling of their own chi, synthesizing the feeling of your chi, right? So then how do you go back to owning this thing? Is the process of igor-chi, to be guided by what resonates with you. I used physics as an example earlier, right? If physics resonates with you, you already understand that body of knowledge from beginning to end. If every time you see or read or learn something within physics resonates with you, you already know it. That resonance is your chi, and that chi is reminding you of who you are. If you are interested in mechanics and it resonates with you every time you hear about mechanics, you see it happening or you were involved with it, most importantly, and it shines, that's the thing. If relaxing resonates with you, right? Nobody's going to tell you that you need to go somewhere to learn about relaxing. But the same resonance an individual who enjoys relaxing gets from relaxing is the same that a person who likes studying music theory gets as well. But one person is told that go somewhere else and learn how to do it, and the other person, you should know how to naturally relax, right? So ancestrally, now applying this concept in a practical way, teaching in the ancestral sense is done by doing, right? An individual learns, or an individual is taught by doing. You see it in nature. It's the most natural thing you see in nature. A bird will throw its seed from a nest, and in throwing it from the nest, eventually that thing starts flying because being a bird is within, right? A spider's mother, which has a less sophisticated, if it's not obvious, a less sophisticated brain than you have, does not teach it how to weave these elaborate tapestries. It doesn't teach it the algorithm that it is following. But this thing with a pin of a brain then figures out how to weave this complex pattern that we as human beings not only have not yet understood through the scientific method, we have not understood that through scientific method, we can't replicate it. This pin of a brain. Now, what we then say, which also comes from the Western understanding that separates humanity from nature because you're the special one, everything else is not special, right? Is that, we have a consciousness, we're intelligent, and they're just following instinct. They're following instinct. We're thinking about everything we do, right? Now, right now, if you think about what's going on right now, right? The only thing I'm controlling, the only thing are my muscle tendons. That is the only thing your consciousness controls in your body. Your heartbeat is not controlled by your consciousness. the function of your organs, the multiplication of your cells, the flow of your blood, the interface of oxygen with your body. You don't control these things, but somehow you think that your consciousness, that you're your consciousness, and that's the only thing going on, right? That's the only thing going on. So then you now look and see, okay, there is an entire world happening within me, and it might know more than I do. And I may need to humble myself to this idea that within me is all of these little bodies of knowledge that I'm seeking in all these little places and through all these little hidden doors and masters and schools and things like that, right? All these little things. So again, I say, if you're interested in physics, you already know it. If you're interested in being a musician, you already know it. If you want to see this manifest in the most practical sense, there is no form. The culture we're all most familiar with is the African diasporic cultures, be there the Black American experience or the Caribbean, things like that, just because of where we all live. Most of us are in America, right? And are Americans. So if we look at that sense, right, you can't teach somebody, if you look at any music form that comes from African people in America, there's no teaching process. You don't teach someone how to do jazz. That person comes and brings out what's within them. And the next guy brings out what's within him with his instrument. And maybe the next girl brings out what's within her with her, and all of a sudden you have a full-blown song come out, right? And this ties exactly with the African music tradition of Ogene, or the Igbo music tradition of Ogene. Exact same process. Nobody teaches anybody how to do anything, but everybody takes the instrument that resonates with them and brings out what's within them, and suddenly there's rhythm. It works, right? Now, if you go to the Western sense, right? 1, 2, 3, go. And then one person does this with a stick. This doesn't mean anything. You're just doing this, and you're to believe that this person waving his stick is what's making you play what you're playing and what you're reading, that type of thing. Right? If you go to hip hop, right? People don't teach people how to rap. You just keep doing it until it comes out of you, right? If you have a structured freestyling, exactly. If you have a structured method of trying to rap, everybody's gonna hear it. It's gonna sound horrible because that's not what we're trying to hear. We're trying to hear that thing inside of you, that universal rhythm come out of you. We want to see you perform igor-more and become something else, and then return to yourself. Every single African tradition of music, every single one, no matter what colonialism, slavery, XYZ did, the things that are most natural to us usually have the exact same structure, right? As far as that goes, right? So as far as everything being the same, as far as all of them being the same, now the 2 proverbs I used, and I'm gonna wrap things up, was that a child standing up cannot see what an elder sees sitting down. And the second one I used was a child who travels is wiser than an elder who stays home, right? Fundamentally, what made the difference for our ancestors was the idea that there is no knowledge, understanding, spirituality, or wisdom that comes at the sake of knowledge, understanding, spirituality, and wisdom. Doing is what comes first. Doing is what comes first, in that a child is naturally less wise than an elder. But once that child travels, once that child does, and the elder refuses to do, the child has gained a mastery or unlocked a mastery from within the self that the elder does not have, because the elder did not take that journey that the child took, right? There's a proverb in the Igbo culture that says a child who washes his hand can eat with the elders. You understand? It is in doing. It is in doing. Now, what is keeping us from this concept of doing? There are those who enjoy information for the sake of information, like myself. That's natural, right? And then there are those who are more inclined towards doing. You understand? It is the marriage of these types of people, either within one person or in a team structure, that makes things happen. Now, what is fundamentally keeping us from doing is our attachment to all of those little doors and corridors and teachers and titles and things like that that we believe we are going to get our resonance from, because they sell a good feeling. And as it stands, from what I'm seeing, if anybody else disagrees, let me know. Our priority as a people is feeling good. Our priority as a people is feeling good. which makes us the most susceptible to all these things that sell that particular feeling. And we have very good reason to want to feel good as a people, worldwide, on the continent and beyond. We have a lot of reasons to want to feel that way, you understand, or to seek that feeling in all of these little doors and corridors and from all these different masters, right? But this is the difference. When your knowledge and your spirituality and your pursuits are the side effect of action, things happen, and you get that resonance in a natural way. In that, if you become sick, you have enough tools to your disposal, and if it resonates with you to seek healing, you can go ahead and do that. Go ahead and try. Go ahead and try. Do it. You will invent the next great medicine. You know, you will invent the next great herbal whatever. If you have it within you to build an airplane, right? Do it. Go do that. As you're doing it, the learning will come. The knowledge will come. In traditional African societies, I know there's a couple of people with even more experience than I have with it. The person that delivers your child is the aunt that does it the best. You don't need this. You don't need to leave the family for all of these things. So that when you do leave the family, you're leaving the family whole and not with a handout to receive. You have something in your hand that you can offer, right? So a lot of us have these things that resonate with us, but this idea of knowledge being something detached from the individual keeps us from seeking these things in a genuine way. There's a lot of online Egyptologists, right? One Black Senegalese man going to Egypt and reading the pyramids as they are unlocked so much that was hidden from us as African people, right? All of these things that were hidden, just one. If many of our, like a lot of the online Egyptology community goes on, pursues this thing full on, who knows what we'll unlock? Who knows what we'll unlock? So fundamentally, we're as knowledgeable as our aspirations. If you want to know how the West was able to overtake the African or the Africans, was because they wanted to. They took Africa because they wanted, not because they could. They began this pursuit in the time of the Portuguese after overthrowing the Moors in Spain. In the time of the Portuguese and Spanish, they tried fighting their way through. They failed. Go and check the track history of all the fights in Africa. They tried to fight their way through. It didn't work, right? And over the next 200-300 years, they understood that what was on this continent was the key to their survival and wealth as a people, because they come from a barren continent. And what was in North America was their key to survival because they come from a barren, and on and on and on and on. And because it was linked to their survival, they got to the point where it was possible. They reached the point it was possible, right? Now, I'm not saying go do that, right? But a lot of our individual pursuits are not that grand, even when we think they are. Go after it. You will acquire the knowledge as you go. And by the time you reach the finish point, you'll be what we call an expert. You can codify it and then pass it on to your descendants. So that's really it. Make your knowledge and spirituality the side effect of your pursuits, and you'll know the ancestral way of knowing. So yeah.
Man, Derek, that was absolutely amazing. I think every single attendee here can agree that was purely amazing. So we're not finished because we definitely want to get some Q&A going. So if you have questions, you can either put them directly into the chat, but it'd be better if you put it into the Q&A. So click that link and you can ask some questions. So I do have a few questions that have come in already. One question I have, let me just pull it up. Okay, so the question is from an anonymous attendee. It says, Nana Chukwunyere Kamalu approaches this issue in person, divinity, and nature. When discussing or talking about our systems or ways of knowing, how critical is language to the precise conveying of meanings from our worldview, and to not fall into the equal sign explanations where we may say this means that across languages. Very, very, very important question. Something, yeah, you're muted. Okay.
Yes, very, very, very important question. So one of, if I were to translate something from, let's say, Igbo to Akan, the gap between understanding won't be that deep, in that I can probably express a lot of Igbo concepts in some of the Akan languages and dialects and so forth, right? And we won't miss too much. Now, when I go to do it in English, there may be an even bigger gap, right? A lot of that is natural. Is geography, it's history, it's developing at a completely different place in the world than we did, right? Geography will explain a lot of these things for you. So English to ancestral concepts often falls short. Now, here's another thing. It's often said in Nigeria that if you want to lie, you have to speak English. You know? Yeah, if you want to lie, you have to speak English. Now, that sounds strange, but English is a coded language. A lot of times in English, we'll say words and we don't actually know what we're saying because maybe it's borrowed from another language. It's a sentence from this language, a sentence from that language, whatever, that type of thing, right? Like if you take the word computer, you think you're saying something unique, but it's really thing that thinks. Now, why can't I tell you, oh, why don't you purchase a thing that thinks? Because I don't know, I want you to pay more for it. That's why. Thing that thinks is maybe you think, why would you pay money for it? You know what I mean? But if I sell you computer, oh, that okay, how much? $900, and then you'll pay, right? In Igbo, it's thing that thinks. So a lot of the times, if you want to do a direct translation, it's possible, but know what you're saying in English. Oftentimes, it's the English that fails. One struggle we have with the Igbo language is the concept of Eze. People translate Eze as king often, Eze as king. Now, we say king because we think, okay, apex leader, like main leader. That's not what a king is. A king is the person that owns the land you're on. A king is intimately tied to the concept of feudalism, right? That's why you call the Queen of England your grace. She's allowing you to exist on her land by her grace. In the old British passports, they used to say, we are asking the Queen for permission to leave her lands XYZ, XYZ. She's a queen. There's nothing in Africa that equates that. And there shouldn't be either. We're not feudalistic people, or not Africa. In our part of Africa, the West African band and into Central Africa, we did not have a feudal system of existing, at least not for as long as the Europeans did. Later on some developed, or some fell into that concept, right? But we didn't have that. So an Eze, now the Ze in Eze means hidden, secluded. All it means is distinguished. Somebody who's distinguished, somebody who's set aside, right? Somebody who's set aside and king, or somebody who owns the land, entirely different concepts. So when you do the translations, know what you're saying in English, because it's English that's the tricky language. That's the one, that's the deceptive one. But knowing that in the end of the day, if you're able to learn the languages of the people, like I said, most of what I know comes from examining the language, right? So the doors blow wide open because there's a lot that our people know that is not known elsewhere. So you can't do that translation anyway. So
yeah, thank you for that. The one thing I would also add is that, language can act as a barrier, so to speak, that stops people from even seeing certain things, right? And so it is absolutely essential that we continue to study and relearn and utilize our traditional African, I'm sorry for the notification sounds, our traditional African languages, so that we can unlock ourselves and begin to even look at other ways of understanding, knowing, and thinking about something, right? A lot of times we get stuck in English, which goes back to Latin and whatever other languages it's borrowing from. And so it's very necessary for us to do that. Very, 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 very beautiful presentation. So we did have a few more questions. There was one question. So I guess in this whole process, you were talking about kind of knowing from an internal perspective, being one of the major ways we really begin to understand something from the external, right? And so one comment / question that I have, how does that process look in conjunction with, for example, there's always a number of, like, let's say when you're raising a child, there's a number of songs in proverbs that you speak to the child so that they learn, right? And so is that an external process? Is that an internal process? How do you look at that? And then the same thing for, let's say someone who may be a blacksmith or something like that. Yes, if they come, they may have this internal spark of knowledge within them, but how do you then quantify or look at that process of their teacher or whatever saying, okay, do this or don't do this or do this? How do you look at that?
So if, as far as the child goes, right, or let's even just use adults in the same kind of context. If you watch a movie or if you hear a song that makes no sense, it makes no sense. It doesn't resonate, it doesn't connect, and you probably forget about it unless you want to talk about how bad it was, right? That's a natural thing that we understand. There are songs you'll sing to a child and it resonates with that child, right? There are songs that you'll sing and it doesn't resonate with that child, right? There are subjects you can put in front of a student that they will never learn. And we have to accept that too. That's fine. They will never learn that subject. And then you put another one of equal complexity or whatever we want to call it, and they just shoot right through it. If we can talk about this, if we want to talk about this Igbo cosmology thing, I can do this for years, right? Without breathing, I can, but, just something as like, I failed at many subjects in school. It just did not resonate with me. I couldn't do it. So that, yes, when I say these things, I mean it from the core of my being, right? You can have a teacher that teaches you something and all of a sudden you're performing that thing better than your teacher. So what did the teacher teach you that made you better than him or her? Nothing. That thing was in you. You can help somebody pull something out of themselves. You can help something, and in the process of them manifesting and having that thing come out of themselves, they will take a particular shape. And you may, as a teacher, think that you created that shape, but it wasn't you. I water my plants every day. What they end up turning into has nothing to do with me. I'm not the one that told them, okay, it's time to produce peppers. It just doesn't, right? So when you sing a song to a child and the child likes that song, keeps asking you for that song again and again and again, there's a reason. There's a reason. That song is pulling out something from within them. One thing I want us to explore more as Black people is the idea of getting out of people's way. The idea of, if a person likes something, even if it looks like the most ridiculous thing possible, right? Even if it looks like something that cannot possibly make them an income or whatever, get out of that person's way. Because what keeps us away from that resonance is the fact that we don't trust our own internal resonance. We are taught, or we condition ourselves or each other to, no, you're not good until you go over there, or that thing you're interested in is not important. Go do that first. Everything I'm speaking to, I've been looking at this since I was 11 years old. I never thought it was important until recently. I never thought it mattered until recently, right? Again, just getting out of each other's way and letting that natural resonance come out. Now, a lot of times that resonance can be seen in the interface individuals have with art and learning. You teach two people something, and then for some reason, this person grows a little bit and that person doesn't care. Okay, there's a connection, right? So that's, I believe, the answer to that.
I definitely understand what you're saying. I mean, and that's why a lot of our systems are very big on looking at the individual destiny of a person coming, and so that shapes a lot of their educational processes, so that it's focused on pulling out whatever is already been instilled in that person through the creator, the shrines, the ancestors, and whatever. So thank you for that. Some other questions we have. So this is a question from Adetayo, and he asks basically, how does something or discover in kind of this Igbo perspective become a repeatable process that is adopted by an entire culture? So when looking at kind of the West, that process of repeatability is really, really big, right? Something being able to be repeated. So can you speak on how something that someone knows or discovers becomes a repeatable process for through the Igbo lens?
Yeah. So the Western idea of the individual is rooted in Christianity. In Christianity, there's a concept that individuals are born flawed or born with sin, and then they're also born blank. And then the world then molds them or fills them with things that will then make them into who they are. I think that has to be made clear as far as that, as far as where these concepts are coming from. In our cosmology, right? Each one of us with a chi, all of us are manifestations of creation, in that we are manifestation of God and universe, right? And I don't need to teach a star how to shine. I don't need to teach the moon how to be a moon. You understand, right? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't teach people. What I'm saying is this: when you get out of people's way, in the Western idea, right? If we don't teach these people XYZ, right? Or if we don't make sure things are XYZ, things will fall apart, because inherently people are born wrong. People are born flawed. If there's no government, people will destroy each other. That's what we often say in America. That's why I don't watch a lot of sci-fi and things like that. That's not true, right? If you get out of people's way, you'll actually see that all of these different facets and components that make up a society will naturally come unto themselves, right? Somebody is going to want to sweep. Don't know why they want to do it, but they're going to be the person that sweeps, right? But we're telling that person, don't do that thing, don't do that thing, do this thing, do this thing. And then we're taking somebody else and bending them and forcing them to be the person that sweeps, right? And then often you get into race and class and who gets picked for what. You understand? If you get out of people's way, these things come out naturally, so that in repeating that process, if I can play saxophone, some people, I have a good friend I grew up with. They took him to piano lessons and he had a lot of fun. Then he came home to the home piano and started playing the song that he heard. And from there, he knew how to play piano, right? I have an uncle, dropped out in what we would call second grade. He builds like satellite receivers. He gets channels from any country in the world right now. He can build anything electronic, he can do it. Just because anytime you see an electronic, take it apart. We see children doing these things all the time, right? We see children doing these all the time. And they reach a level of mastery within themselves if you get out of their way and allow them to pursue their interest. Some of us, a lot of us look at history as something complex or complicated, but we can recite movies or albums or songs verbatim, in that we think for some reason the album of these very specific words that extend for over an hour is a harder or an easier thing to learn than the story of human history. It's not. It's not. But if you were as interested in history as you were in that album, you will become a master of history. All a teacher can do is show you something. And then if it resonates with you, you're actually the one doing the work.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that. Hope that answered your question. I did tell you. So we have a not long question, but a question from brother Kwesi Akoto. Thank you for sharing your question, brother. So he says, Derek, first, thank you. You mentioned how families could have differing understandings or belief in different spirits or varying practices. How are these differences bridged across the number of families, ethnic groups, nations, etc., as we seek to unify our people without causing ones to compromise?
Yeah, so we have a proverb in Igbo culture that says, it's a very popular one. It says, let the falcon perch and let the eagle perch. And whichever one says that the other shouldn't perch, may his wings break, right? And this is fundamentally what it is, right? We get into these spaces where we are interested in the advancement of ourselves as a people. And one of the things we always put in front of this concept is the idea of unity, right? I think most people in this room would say that we need to be united. I'll be the person that says we don't. I'll go ahead and be the person that says we don't. Why do we think we need to be united? Because we think what we're facing is a lot bigger than it is, right? We think what we're facing is a lot bigger than it is. And we have a vague understanding of what we're facing, in that if we understand it, it will only take the few interested people to get the job done. It would only take that, right? So as far as the African context and the African thing like that, within my home, I'm going to have my own spirituality. My pantheon of ancestors will not look like my neighbor's pantheon of ancestors. And I'll step outside and I'll talk to this person, I'll interact, I'll do every single thing we need to do together. Now, if we need to get something done, all right, we need to build a new community road. We'll have a way of doing that, a system of doing that. Ritual, a ritual for doing that, a tradition for doing that. 99% of traditions exist so that we don't argue when it's time to do things. That's all a tradition is, you know? We'll have a tradition of doing that comes up naturally. But if I now start telling you that, no, your ancestors in your house are fake, come to my house, or mine are the real ancestors, I sound crazy. You know, and then from there, I'm no longer in the conversation. So in order to make this work within a diverse set of people is, one, be very clear about what you want to work and let go of the idea that everybody needs to do it with you, right? And then also the falcon perch and the eagle perch, whoever says otherwise, let them break their wings. If somebody is deeply devoted to the concept of Ifa and another person is devoted to going to church, and it's genuine, their chi is making them do that for a reason, and it's a reason greater than you. But you will find that once you accept each individual as an individual unit and you place an objective forward, you'd be surprised to see what kind of unity comes through. So put the action first and the unity will happen.
Okay. I think we have time for a couple more questions. Okay, so I'm going to kind of combine these two questions together. So one question says, what does being in rhythm with nature look like? And then I'm going to combine that with the question, how can one teach their children to be one with nature or in rhythm with nature?
Yeah. So most of what we do is a response or an interaction with the natural world. Now, in that aspect, right, we've come to an understanding, or maybe a lack thereof, that there's something wrong with nature itself. There's something wrong with humans in the contemporary Western thought, and there's also something wrong with nature, right? That thing, oh, you know, this planet's going to destroy, and we need to go to Mars, and we'll start over there because somehow we know, you know, that kind of thing. So we have this idea that these things are flawed or these things are wrong, right? And so we have this over-reliance on that consciousness, right? And let me not call it a consciousness, that thought process, the mind, right? In the Western culture, there's an over-reliance on that thing that only controls my tendons. All it controls. The only thing that controls my body is my tendons, right? And what the pulling of my muscles. That's all. That we think that's the thing that's actually making everything happen. And it's not, right? It's a part of it, but it's not the whole picture, right? And so in that, in order to be in rhythm with nature, first you have to humble yourself to nature, right? The day doesn't begin when your clock says it begins when the sun comes up. Simple things. The month is not, this is not the month, this is not Julius Caesar month. This is not Augustus Caesar month, right? This is the first moon, the second moon, the third moon, the fourth moon, those things, right? If you're a woman and you pay attention to lunar cycle, there's a reason that our women are very interested in this astrology. It's not unnatural. There's a reason if you pay attention to your body, you pay attention to what's happening in the sky. As the sky, not because somebody said, okay, now it's time to celebrate Julius Augustus month. If you pay attention to that thing, you'll now start seeing your internal workings will start making a lot more sense to you, right? So being in rhythm with nature is more simple than not being in rhythm with nature. A lot of what we're doing is programming because we think there's something wrong with nature or nature is lesser and that we ourselves are lesser. In order to be good, we have to go to the people that know better. People who know better. What day is it? Today is Thor's Day. Okay, fine, it's Thor's Day. No, it's not Thor's Day. You understand? It's not Freak's Day. It's not Saturn Day. It's not Sun's Day. You understand? Your body knows what's going on. You know. So again, just trusting your body, trusting the things around you to tell you what's going on. So yeah.
I think, man, that's a very, very good answer. I I think you said that it's simpler. I think it's what you say. It's harder to not be in sync with nature than it is to be in sync with nature. That's a good point. Okay. So if we have any more questions, please, add them to the Q&A. I guess one of the things I wanted to really point out is that as you see through this process, Derek is using proverbs as a way of justifying, so to speak, justifying his points and so on. I think that's very important as we consistently ensure that we are re-involving our ancestors and their knowledge that has now been codified in the form of proverbs, making sure that they're still relevant and using it to contextualize anything that we're facing now. I think that's a very important thing. So proverbs as a way of knowing and as a way of contextualizing, so on, kind of the things that we're facing. So that's very important. If anyone has any more questions, please put them into the chat. I know a lot of people have been asking about making sure that this video is made available. So we're going to make sure we work to do that. So if there's, okay, so someone asked a question. Do you believe in the 10,000 hour rule for mastery of a subject?
I can't remember if I read the book or I read parts of it or I just listened to something about it. But you're talking about the Malcolm Gladwell's theory as far as 10,000. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that that's not true because, again, if you do something multiple times, you do something over and over and over, of course, you're going to be a master of it. So 10,000, if you want to call it 10,000, absolutely, that's fine. Now, this kind of goes back to the original point I was making. It's really hard to do something over and over and over that doesn't resonate with you, right? There's people who are interested in calligraphy and they just want to draw the letter A over and over and over until they reach a point of doing that thing. So again, is it the doing or was that thing inside of them they needed to just pull it out, right? Was it something about their chi and how they came into the world expressing itself, right? So I think that if you're able to follow your resonance, you're able to follow your chi, 10,000 hours will come very easy. A lot of us will look at the concept of writing a book as very complicated, but we've typed 10,000 hours worth of tweets and 300 pages worth of Facebook arguments and things like that. You understand? We've done the work already, right? Why? Because that naturally resonates with us. And when it resonates with you, you take it for granted. You think it's a small thing or it's not as significant. So yeah, I believe in the 10,000 hour thing. I think that the missing piece is that the things you can do for 10,000 hours are the things that resonate with you. It's other, unless there's like a gun to your head or something. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we also had, so a question from Bonisile said, how do the Igbo understand fear and how is it addressed and interfaced?
Okay. Good question. Fear. It's complicated because I don't want to go into explaining the concept of Ekwensu, but I'll give a brief overview. So the idea of Ekwensu is, in the Christians have appropriated Ekwensu to mean the devil. That's not what Ekwensu is. And I don't like that I even have to preface that. So because anybody who's familiar with the word has probably heard it in that context. But Ekwensu is the Abara, or the spirit that spirits fear, right? Is the spirit that spirits fear. But Ekwensu is an intimate and close part of every community. It is a loved part of every community that understands what they're doing or what they're saying. You understand? So that our ancestors, Ekwensu is also associated with ignition, like igniting or making things happen, right? Our ancestors understand this. There is no such a thing as ridding yourself of fear. That in order for a car to move, an explosion has to happen in the engine. And sometimes that explosion is fear, right? Now, as far as Ekwensu goes, Ekwensu is what's going to keep your community safe. But you have to put Ekwensu in the right place. And you have to know how to deal with that element and interface with it and make sure that you're walking with it as opposed to walking against it, right? So the best example, and I always see whenever I'm taught about Ekwensu or I'm reading about Ekwensu, reminds me of young men, right? Young men from the ages of, let's call it 15 to about 25, are the most dangerous element in any community. If there's too many of them lingering around, you're going to have a problem, right? But when it's time to protect that community, that's exactly who's going to do it. When it's time to take an exceptional level of pride in that community, that's exactly who's going to do it. You understand? So fear, which is represented by Ekwensu, in every ritual that deals with Ekwensu, is about putting that fear to use, or putting that fear behind you as ignition. If you are afraid to do something, like I make videos on the Medicine Shell on YouTube. Every single time I'm about to record, I have an anxiety attack. But that anxiety attack makes me want to make sure that thing is good, right? Before, the anxiety attack used to stop me from doing. But now I understand, okay, I'm going to work through it. I am not entitled. This is another thing that's understood in African spiritual system, very well emphasized in Ifa. You're not entitled to feeling good. The world does not exist to make you feel good. And some of those bad feelings are necessary ingredients for you getting things done, right? Some of those fearful elements are the ignition that make things happen. In order for a car to move, there must be an explosion in the engine. If there's an explosion in the car seat, you're gonna have an issue. So yeah.
Thank you. So we do have a couple more questions. So someone asked a very brief question: what is the relationship between Qi and Igbo culture and Qi and Chinese traditional thought?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So I have a video on my channel called Qi Explained. If you search the Medicine Shell YouTube and just type in Qi Explained, that's a good place to start. So often I like to explain the concept as it is, as opposed to comparing it to something else. But as people understand a little bit more, I'll begin the cross comparisons and stuff like that. So Qi in Chinese culture is closely related to the concept of vital energy. So it's your life force or your energy and things like that, which can increase or decrease based on different things and so on and so forth, right? In Igbo culture, this is called your ikenga, right? But what's interesting is that in Chinese culture, the Qi being, in Igbo culture, the ikenga is called the gift of your Qi. It is when you are walking in your Qi, that's the thing that activates. In that, if your Qi brought you into a world to be a basketball player, you're going to play that thing on your first day, you're going to play that thing differently than the average person, or it's going to mean something. That there's an ignition that's going to happen. A lot of us, when we're in the zone or we're in the space that where we're walking with our Qi, we gain the power to do the thing our Qi brought us to do. The proverb I use to explain it is when the Qi of a blind man sends him into battle, it has already accounted for his blindness, wow. Right? So the things your Qi brought you into the world to do, you are already capable of doing that thing. We've already checked it off. Oh, but I walk slow and I got like a club foot. Don't worry, we know, go. You understand? So the Qi, that is the ikenga. And once you do that thing, you're a higher form of yourself. Your ability to do increases. So that the Chinese Qi is actually the Igbo ikenga, but they're related. And another thing I want to point out is you're going to look all over the world and you'll see correlations within all these things. Baba did a very good job of clarifying that science is not just science, right? When you enter the space of cosmology and metaphysics and things like that, it is a group of people's desire to understand the universe and themselves. That is cosmology. That is metaphysics. It is their desire to understand, so that these things are based on observation. We can say it's a Chinese cultural, Igbo cultural, Yoruba cultural. If we all look at the sky, we're all going to describe a similar thing. They're speaking to reality. When you get into the space of like, let's call it religion, right? That's somebody saying, okay, this is how the world should be, or this is how society should be. And it's an entirely different thought process. So if you look at what we're talking about as far as Igbo cosmology, and you look at the Shinto traditions, the Chinese traditions, a lot of the Native American ones, the Inuit, even traditional European concepts before the arrival of the Romans, you're going to see a lot of correlations because we're all speaking to what we can see. If we were making stuff up, we would have died a long time ago, because this is where our medicine comes from. This is where our food comes from. This is where our understanding and traditions come from. And our fundamental survival, our ability to protect ourselves, come from these concepts. If they were not real, we would be dead. So that's the answer to that.
Okay. So I think we're going to maybe take. Okay. We actually have a long question. Okay. What is Ofunwa's take on Anna Amos Wilson's discussion of creative taste and desires and manipulation? Essentially, then the intentional guiding someone's chi off its path to facilitate control. In that situation, should one get out of the person's way and let them express what resonates with them, when what appears to resonate not be coming from within per se, but implanted for the benefit of those who implanted those tastes and desires in the first place. In that sense, what appears to resonate in terms of what their desire may not be from their own chi, but from, say, the spirit possession facilitated by the advertising industry. Very, very good question.
Wow. So whoever asked that question has a very good understanding of what's going on, a very, very, very strong understanding of what's going on. The reason I said that the knowing is not different here and there is what you're seeing at the highest levels in the West is what is known at the bottom level in Africa, right? We're all doing the same thing. The intention is different. The knowledge is the same. So as far as somebody veering you off, somebody taking you off, right? Our ancestors did a good job. And one thing that I'll go ahead and pat myself in the back, but one thing that is done very well in Igbo culture is there's a very strong understanding of jurisdiction, right? It's a very strong understanding of jurisdiction in that if you come to my house, any laws that you have outside of my house don't exist. When you're in my house, you're in my country. When you're in my community, you're in my country. You understand that type of thing. There's a very strong understanding of that. You do not seek what is within from the outside, right? So you get into a relationship and you'll think that that other person will make you happy. But if you're naturally an unhappy person, or if you're already in a disposition, let me not say naturally unhappy, but if you're already, you have not worked on yourself, that thing's gonna break apart, right? It's not gonna work. You're gonna put a burden on that person that doesn't exist. If you think you're gonna get that happiness from a substance, you'll develop an addiction. If you think you're gonna get it from a product, you're gonna be broke, right? All of these things, like that sense of feeling good or the resonance and so forth, right? It is, and to what I said before, it is easier to figure that out than it is to connect yourself to all these other things. One of the ways I ask, or I try to explain this to people is, what do you do on your free time? What do you do when you have nothing else to do, right? What do you do at that? Even if it's going on the internet and arguing about celebrities and shit, I don't know. No matter what it is, that thing, that's the truth. Whether you like it or not, whether you think, you're never going to think it's significant because it comes so natural to you that you're going to take it for granted, right? Whatever it is, there's something in there that tells you the truth. What you do, it's when you start getting all these other obligations that you put that thing to the side and do. And sometimes it's necessary that you have to go do XYZ or be XYZ to do whatever. You start work at a new company, you're there just to get paid, but they say, oh, we have an employee of the month program. They go, okay, man, maybe I can be the employee of the month. You want to feel good. You don't want to be the employee of the month. You just want to feel good. You want to be validated, right? Validate yourself first, and then go into the world, complete. So that when somebody goes, I can validate you, you can say, okay, but what's behind the validation? Okay, I want that, let's go. Or no, I don't want that, we're fine. So yeah, jurisdiction. Any emotion you're gonna feel is based on you. It's not the outside. Anything that's gonna happen within your home or that your home needs is gonna come from you, not from the outside. Once you're able to understand that and put things together and be true to yourself, you can enter the world and see the deception more clearly. Whoever asked that question, based on the way they worded the question, I think you already know what I'm saying. So yeah.
Yeah, so the person who asked that question was Okunini Obadele Kambon, who is, just an absolute scholar, multi-linguist, just deep thinker, everything. So he definitely, he's right there. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay. I just realized that he posted a question only for the panelists to see, and he's on stage with us, so the rest of the attendees could not see it. But yes, Okunini Obadele Kambo is the one who asked that question. So I think one last question, and then we're going to begin wrapping it up. So this question comes from Adai Madzimoyo. He says, thanks so much for the wisdom of your presentation. My question is this: how do we filter out what truly resonates with us in a society where so many things are made to be attractive?
Yeah. So kind of tying into the question I was asked previously, there is, when an individual does what is called ogun, right? Ogun, we use ogun to say medicine in Igbo culture, but it can also, it's anything that causes transmission or transmutation. So people will call juju ogun, right? It's all within the same pantheon. There is a science to how that thing is done. And I kind of revealed one of the big keys in my presentation is in taking somebody's chi and saying, or the idea of resonance and saying, you want this, all right, get past this hand, right? And when you come past this hand, yeah, I got you. All right, XYZ, yada, yada, yada. So the fundamentally is, it is understanding that nothing is going to come from anywhere else. You're not going to feel like a better person about yourself by buying XYZ, by being, by having XYZ titles, so on and so forth. Now, if you have the intention to do something specific to your chi, and all of those things are necessary in order to do it, that's fine, go ahead. When, you know, I'm, as a person, as maybe as a part of my Igbo DNA, I'm an entrepreneur, right? I like business, and we're a stereotype for that in Africa or whatever, right? Now, I always know when I'm on the wrong path when I start getting advertisements from Tai Lopez. You understand? When Tai Lopez starts saying, you see this car, you see this boat, you see this house, I got it. It was easy. You can get it too. Whoop, whoop. I know I'm on the wrong path. You understand? I'm like, okay, whatever I'm doing is bullshit, right? If I get an advertisement that says, this is a new streaming platform, or this is a tool for you to do the thing you're already doing, I then know I'm on the right path. You understand? Because that's the type of knowledge I need. I'm moving in this direction. What's going to help me move in this direction? Oh, this clears bushes. Great. Clear, clear, clear. This person is telling me I can make you feel good, or I can make you feel that ikenga sense or feeling, and he can't. But an unknowing person will then go, okay, let me go to that person and get that feeling. So my wife and nieces and son just came in. So yeah. So again, it's in putting the doing first. You're susceptible to these things when you're sitting and stewing in your own feelings and things like that, right? Once you start doing the things you'll be interested in, again, that friend that plays piano right now, he's the only thing he wants to hear about is instruments, right? Because it's in his path. It's in his so do first. Onyekwe, chiekwe, that's the saying. Once you do, your chi follows. What you allow, your chi allows. You understand? Do first. And then the fog and the snake oil selling and this will make you feel good, all of a sudden you'll realize what it is. You'll put it in perspective. I used to think I was interested in politics. Once I started this channel, I can't look at it, right? Because I used to think there was a solution there for the world, and there's not, you know? But I wasn't interested in politics, I was interested in solution. And once I started this learning and presenting, I started feeling that actual solution and seeing it. And all of a sudden, all of the false sources of solutions started falling to the wayside, you know? So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I think we're going to close this out. I want to say again, thank you, Derek, for this topic, for being able to present on it, because this, as I said in the beginning, is essential to our ability to resurrect, to reconstitute an African science. We have to go and make sure we understand the various ways of knowing that we have as African people. And in this presentation, one of the major things you constantly brought up was the importance of recognizing that knowledge is internal, right? And so we have to do internal work to pull understanding, you know, to a lot of external things that we may be interacting with and so on, right? And so we're very, very appreciative for you sharing your knowledge. Every single person in the chat just, you know, was giving you your accolades and everything. People offline were texting me like, oh my God, this is amazing. You know, so I really appreciate this. So we're going to close out. So this actually, like I said in the beginning, this was the last presentation for tonight. Tomorrow morning, we're going to start. The first presentation starts at 9:30, but the webinar will open up at 9 a.m., right? So you can come here at 9 a.m. or if you want to come here right at 9:30, that's fine. The first topic will be on African concepts of time. And so that's a really, really good presentation that we're going to have. We have Dr. Mario Beatty and Baba Allende Madzimoyo. They're going to be talking about a lot of deep stuff. So come ready, you know, come with your chi ready and present so that he can dive in and ask all the questions, you know, that are within you and everything. So okay, so thank you all for coming. And now we're going to end it now.
One thing.
Yes, go
I
ahead.
hope you don't mind. I'm going to post a link to
Please.
the Patreon. We have a group study where we have these discussions.
Please do.
Okay, so here it comes. Patreon.com/. Cool. If anybody's interested, we have these kind of discussions on Patreon, patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. And if that's not what you're trying to do, I'm on YouTube at The Medicine Shell, so you can subscribe and take a look at the videos there. So thank you very much for having me. Kachifu.
I'm sorry. Yes, please make sure you join all his stuff. Like if you liked what you heard today, there's so much more information. There's so much more information. That's readily available. So you can find his stuff like just Medicine Shell on a lot of the platforms. So please do. So once again, thank you all. I hope to see you all tomorrow. Hopefully there will be a lot more because we had almost 260, maybe 270 people register. So we're going to have probably a lot more people tomorrow. Yeah, so have a good night.